Hi, when people think about finding their first job in tech, they most likely think of the big tech companies like Google, Microsoft, Meta, Apple, making over 100K a year, great work-life balance, great benefits, everything's great. But that's just not realistic. This unhealthy obsession with these big tech companies comes most likely from social media, where they make it seem like they're the only companies that exist, and if you don't get into them, then you failed. While it's definitely not impossible to get into one of these as the first job, the people that do most likely went to a well-known school or had a lot of internships. They're more anomalies rather than the norm, so if you're like me who graduated with no internships, then you really shouldn't compare yourself to them. When you start applying, you'll quickly realize that you have to lower your expectations a lot for the first job, that it's not going to be super amazing, and you're going to need to take whatever job you can find to get work experience. And this leads me to my first expectation, which is that the first job will suck. It's okay to find your first job as a contractor working in government or working in a startup or a non-tech company. The plan here is to stay around for at least a year, gather experience, and then look for other opportunities. These companies are much easier to get into because they have less applicants and more willing to take a chance on a junior. But some of the possible downsides are that there will be less pay, the quality of work might not be as good, they might favor feature completion over code quality, and you also might have to work with legacy code. You might also have to wear multiple hats, which means more responsibility. This is basically full stack and more, like customer service, QA, everything. That's something to look forward to. My first job was at an unknown tech startup. My interview was relatively easy with no leak code style interview questions. It was one phone interview with the CEO to discuss the job, and then a 1-hour React technical interview with the CTO. In my experience, interviewing with smaller companies and non-tech companies, there are much less rounds of interviews because the expectations for juniors are not that high. The next expectation is that you might not be able to do the tech stack that you want. In my first job search, I studied front-end development with React. So initially, I only wanted to do a job that was in React. Although I was lucky and I found a position as a React developer, I realized afterwards that I shouldn't have been so picky. When I was interviewing with companies that had a different tech stack, I wasn't interested in the interview as much and I didn't try as hard. But now that I think about it, it would have been fine to do Vue or Angular. Backend might have also been okay. Our whole career is about continuously learning, so I think it's a good idea to get exposure to more frameworks and technologies. Then you'll increase the number of jobs that you can apply to. The next expectation is that you should be willing to relocate. If you're not having any luck applying to jobs in your area, then it could be just that there's not that many jobs around you. It'll be a good idea to explore applying to jobs in different tech hubs or different states. Relocation might be a little uncomfortable and be out of your comfort zone, but I think it's a great way to grow and encounter new experiences. Also, it'll greatly increase your chances of finding a job because you'll be able to apply to more places. Some companies also offer relocation benefits, which makes this transition a lot easier. The next expectation is that you'll face many rejections. Rejections from job applications, interviews, getting ghosted more than you do on Tinder. When I started my job search, I received so many rejections that I kind of just started expecting them. My mindset is every rejection is a learning opportunity. If you're not getting callbacks from applications, then your resume isn't good enough. If you're not passing the phone interview, then your soft skills are not good enough. If you're not passing the technical behavioral interviews, then you have to remember the interview questions that you get wrong and study them. But it's not always your fault that you get rejected. Sometimes there are better candidates, the ones with more experience. Maybe the interviews just didn't like you, or they stopped hiring for that position. The main thing to take away from this is that you shouldn't take rejection personally. Always think of it as a way to improve. The market slowed down heavily for hiring juniors in the past year, so in general, it's pretty difficult to find an entry-level job right now. Every time you fail an interview, think about what you did right, what you did wrong, and what you can do to make the next one better. Because interviewing is a skill that you'll use in your whole career, you should have motivation to keep improving it because there's no limit to how good you can become. Interviews are basically just convincing the hiring manager to hire you. The last expectation is it'll take a lot of time and effort. Nothing in this life is easy, and no one's just going to hand you a job if you don't put in the effort. In my first job search, I spent around 10 hours a day coding and building side projects until I finally got my first job offer. While you don't have to spend 10 hours a day coding, I think at least a few hours a day of coding and building side projects could help you build enough confidence in the long run. And you should see gradual improvement month by month. Having confidence and being able to talk about your projects in your interviews is really important because interviewers really like to see you talk about the things that you built. It shows that you're able to learn on your own and you're passionate about coding. There's this advice that I always see people give, which is keep applying, never give up, and you'll eventually find a job. This advice is not really realistic. Mindlessly applying without putting in the effort doesn't work, especially if you don't have experience. And to be able to show your skills and beef up your resume, you have to build projects. There's no definite amount of time that it takes to find a job. Honestly, you might never be able to find one, but all it takes is just one decent job offer. I say decent because there are a lot of bad, exploitative jobs out there. I think the reason that most people don't succeed is because they're not willing to put in the effort and they give up too easily when they start facing rejection. And those are all the expectations that I have for this video. I expect this video to do that well. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.